The suburbs feel safe. That is the whole point of them. Wide lawns, quiet streets, children riding bikes in cul-de-sacs while parents watch from porches with coffee in hand. We are taught from birth that danger lives in dark alleys, in cities, in places where strangers gather and shadows grow long. But danger does not always announce itself with a mask or a weapon. Sometimes it arrives on a sunny Sunday morning wearing a smile and driving a van with the word church painted on the side. Sometimes it does not break into your home. Sometimes you invite it in. Sometimes you climb inside willingly, buckle your children into seats, and thank the man behind the wheel. This is a story about trust, about the invisible contract we all sign every day when we see a uniform, a logo, a symbol that tells us this person is here to help. We do not question the paramedic. We do not interrogate the mail carrier. We do not demand credentials from the man in the vest who says he works for the gas company. We trust because we have to, because society collapses without that trust. And there are people who know this, people who study it, people who weaponize it. On the morning of May 21st, 2023, in the quiet town of Evandale, Illinois, a family of 5 prepared for church. They had done this hundreds of times before. Every Sunday, same routine, same careful choreography of getting 3 children dressed, fed, and out the door on time. The Calloway family. Ethan Calloway, 42 years old, worked as a systems analyst for a logistics firm. Detail-oriented. The kind of man who checked the locks twice before bed and kept a fire extinguisher in every room. His wife, Meredith, was 39. A former elementary school teacher who now homeschooled their children. She kept binders for everything: meal plans, vaccination records, emergency contact lists laminated and posted on the refrigerator. Their children were 10-year-old twins, Iris and Julian, and their youngest, a 6-year-old girl named Poppy. The kind of family that neighbors described as lovely. The kind that brought cookies to block parties and shoveled the elderly woman's driveway across the street without being asked. That Sunday morning began the way every Sunday morning began. Ethan woke at 6:30. He made coffee in the kitchen while Meredith ironed the children's clothes upstairs. Iris had chosen a pale yellow dress with white flowers. Julian wore khakis and a blue button-down shirt that he complained made his neck itch. Poppy, the youngest, insisted on wearing her patent leather shoes even though Meredith had told her they were too small. There was negotiation. There was compromise. Poppy wore the shoes but brought sneakers in a backpack just in case. Breakfast was quick: scrambled eggs, toast, orange juice poured into 3 plastic cups with cartoon characters on the side. Ethan checked his watch. They had 20 minutes. Church started at 9. It was a 12-minute drive. They were on schedule. Meredith gathered the children by the front door and did a final inspection. Hair combed. Faces clean. Poppy had syrup on her sleeve. Meredith wet a paper towel and scrubbed at it while Poppy squirmed and complained. Ethan grabbed the keys from the bowl on the entryway table. He opened the front door and stepped out into the bright morning sun. The air smelled like cut grass and honeysuckle. The silver minivan sat in the driveway exactly where he had left it the night before. He had washed it on Saturday afternoon. Vacuumed the interior. Wiped down the dashboard. It gleamed in the sunlight. He felt a small surge of satisfaction. He took pride in keeping things clean, keeping things running smoothly. He walked toward the driver's side door and pressed the button on the key fob. The van chirped twice. The locks disengaged. The sliding door on the passenger side opened automatically with a mechanical hum. Meredith guided the children toward it. Iris climbed in first, then Julian, then Poppy, who needed a boost. Meredith leaned inside to buckle Poppy into her booster seat. The child was singing a song she had learned in Sunday school the week before. Something about rivers and mountains and God's great hands. Ethan opened the driver's door and was about to climb inside when he heard the sound of an engine. He turned. A white van was pulling into the driveway behind him. Not fast, not aggressive, just rolling to a stop, blocking the exit. Ethan frowned. He did not recognize the vehicle. It was a full-size cargo van, plain white, older model, but clean. On the side, painted in neat blue letters, were the words, "Church Shuttle." Ethan felt his confusion ease slightly. The van idled. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. He was in his mid-30s, average height, wearing jeans and a gray polo shirt. He had a friendly face, the kind of face you forget 5 minutes after meeting. He smiled and raised a hand in greeting. Ethan smiled back reflexively. The man walked toward him with an easy gait, hands visible, non-threatening. Everything about his body language said, "I am not a danger to you." The man stopped a few feet away and gestured toward the rear of the minivan. He spoke. His voice was calm, apologetic. He said something about noticing a problem. Ethan's smile faded. He felt a spike of concern. He looked at Meredith, who had finished buckling Poppy and was now standing beside the open sliding door. She looked at the stranger, then at Ethan, her expression uncertain. The man pointed again, more insistently now, at the undercarriage of the minivan. He crouched slightly and motioned for Ethan to come look. Ethan hesitated for only a second. Then he walked around the front of the van and joined the man near the rear tire. The man crouched lower, pointing beneath the vehicle. He said something about fluid. About a leak. About it not being safe to drive. Ethan bent down to look. He saw nothing. The pavement was dry. There was no puddle, no wetness, no indication of any mechanical failure. But the man sounded so certain. He was pointing with conviction, describing the problem in technical terms that sounded plausible. A brake line issue. A fluid reservoir crack. Something that could cause total failure on the highway. Ethan stood up, his mind racing. He was not a mechanic. He could change a tire, check the oil, but anything beyond that was outside his expertise. He looked at the minivan, doubt creeping in. Had he missed something during his inspection yesterday? Was there a problem he had not noticed? The man stood as well, brushing his hands on his jeans. He smiled again, this time with what looked like genuine sympathy. He said he understood how stressful this must be, especially on a Sunday morning when you are trying to get your family to church on time. He gestured toward his own vehicle, the white van with the church shuttle logo. He said he was heading to the same service. He said he had room. He said he would be happy to give them a ride. No trouble at all. It is what neighbors do. Meredith had walked closer now, the children still inside the minivan watching through the windows. She looked at Ethan, waiting for him to make the decision. Ethan looked at the white van. He looked at the man. He looked at the words painted on the side. Church shuttle. It was not unusual. Many churches in the area ran shuttles for elderly members or families without transportation. He had seen them before in parking lots. And this man was not asking them to go somewhere strange. He was offering a ride to church, the same place they were already going. The same place they went every Sunday. What could possibly be wrong with that? Ethan made the calculation in his head. If the van really did have a brake problem and he ignored it, he could put his family in danger on the road. If he accepted the ride, they would still make it to church on time. He could deal with the van later, call a mechanic, get it towed if necessary. The logical choice was clear. He turned to Meredith and nodded. She hesitated for a moment, her instincts prickling, but she trusted Ethan. He was careful. He did not take risks. If he thought this was okay, then it must be okay. She called to the children. Iris unbuckled first, climbing out of the minivan with her small purse slung over her shoulder. Julian followed, then Poppy, who hopped down onto the driveway and immediately went to Meredith's side, grabbing her hand. The man opened the rear doors of the white van. Inside were 2 rows of bench seats, the kind you see in passenger vans used for airport shuttles or hotel transport. There were even seatbelts. Everything looked legitimate, professional. The man helped Poppy climb inside first. Then Iris. Then Julian. Meredith climbed in after them, settling beside Poppy on the bench. Ethan walked around to the passenger side of the front cabin and opened the door. He glanced back at his own minivan sitting in the driveway, doors still open, engine off. He felt a twinge of unease, but dismissed it. He climbed into the passenger seat and closed the door. The man returned to the driver's seat, smiling. He asked if everyone was buckled in. Meredith confirmed that they were. The man put the van in reverse and backed out of the driveway smoothly. No rush, no sudden movements. He turned the wheel and began driving down the quiet residential street at exactly the speed limit. Ethan watched the houses roll past. Everything looked normal, peaceful. The man made small talk. He asked how long they had been attending the church. He asked the names of the children. Poppy told him her name and that she was 6, and that she could write in cursive. The man laughed warmly and said that was very impressive. Meredith relaxed slightly. This was fine. This was just a kind stranger helping them out. But the van did not turn toward the church. It continued straight through an intersection where it should have turned left. Ethan noticed. He glanced at the man and started to say, "I think you missed the turn," but the man spoke first. He said there was construction on the usual route. He said he knew a faster way. Ethan nodded slowly. That made sense. There was always construction somewhere. He settled back into his seat. Meredith did not notice the missed turn. She was adjusting Poppy's shoes, the ones that were too tight. The twins were looking out the windows, watching the neighborhood change from residential to commercial, then to an area with warehouses and storage facilities. The trees disappeared. The houses disappeared. Meredith looked up. She frowned. She leaned forward and asked the man where exactly they were going. The man did not answer. He reached forward and pressed a button on the dashboard. The rear doors locked with a heavy clunk. Meredith's heart stopped. She grabbed for the door handle and pulled. Nothing. Child locks. Ethan turned in his seat, his face pale, and shouted at the man to stop the van. The man did not stop. He accelerated. Iris began to cry. Julian shouted for his dad. Poppy screamed. Ethan lunged for the steering wheel, but the man was ready. He swung his right arm and struck Ethan hard across the face. Ethan's head snapped back against the window. Blood ran from his nose. Meredith was screaming now, pounding on the divider between the front and rear cabin. The man turned onto a side road, then another, weaving through industrial zones where no cameras watched and no witnesses walked. 3 hours later, a neighbor noticed the Calloway minivan still sitting in the driveway with the doors open. She walked over and called out. No answer. She peered inside. Keys were on the driver's seat. Purses and backpacks were still inside. She called the police. Officers arrived within minutes. They checked the house. Empty. They checked the van. No signs of struggle. No blood. No damage. The vehicle started perfectly. There was no brake fluid leak, no mechanical issue whatsoever. The tire pressure was fine. Everything was fine except the family was gone. Vanished. Surveillance footage from a neighbor's doorbell camera captured the white van pulling into the driveway. Captured the interaction. Captured the family climbing inside willingly. The footage was clear enough to read the words on the side. Church shuttle. But when police contacted every church within a 50-mile radius, none of them operated a shuttle service. None of them recognized the van. The vehicle was a ghost. The FBI was called in within 48 hours. They ran the plates visible in the footage. The van had been reported stolen 3 weeks earlier from a rental lot in Indiana. It had been repainted. The church shuttle lettering was vinyl decals, the kind you can buy online and apply yourself. The driver was identified through facial recognition as a man named Tobias Merrick, 34 years old. No violent criminal history, no connection to the Calloway family. But when agents dug deeper, they found something chilling. Tobias Merrick had worked as a corporate consultant specializing in social engineering and security testing. His job had been to trick employees into giving up passwords, letting him into secure buildings, handing over sensitive information. He was an expert in manipulation, in exploiting trust, in becoming whatever people needed him to be in order to lower their defenses. 6 days after the abduction, a ransom demand was sent to Ethan Calloway's employer, $2 million, delivered in cryptocurrency. Instructions were precise. No police, no FBI. The company contacted authorities immediately. A task force was assembled. Negotiations began. The demands changed daily. The amount increased, then decreased. The communication became erratic. On day 9, a hiker in a wooded area 2 hours south of Evandale found a cell phone discarded in the brush. It belonged to Meredith Calloway. The battery was dead. When charged, investigators found dozens of unsent text messages she had tried to write. Messages to Ethan, to her mother, to anyone. They revealed the family was being held in a basement. The children were separated from the parents. They were given food and water but nothing else. Meredith did not know where they were. She described only darkness and the sound of a furnace running. The break in the case came from an unexpected source. A toll booth camera 3 states away captured the white van passing through on the same day as the abduction. Analysts tracked its route using traffic cameras, gas station footage, ATM cameras. They followed it to a rural property in southern Missouri. A foreclosed farmhouse owned by a shell corporation that traced back to an account Tobias Merrick had opened under a false name. On day 12, federal agents surrounded the property. They found the white van parked in a barn. They found the Calloway family locked in a cellar beneath the house. All 5 were alive, dehydrated, terrified, but alive. Tobias Merrick was arrested without resistance. He confessed within hours. He said he had chosen the Calloway family at random. He had watched them for weeks, learning their routine. He said he wanted to prove he could do it, that he could take anyone, that people were easy to manipulate if you understood the symbols they trusted. He showed no remorse. In the trial that followed, psychologists testified about the power of social engineering, about how our brains are wired to trust authority symbols, church, police, medical personnel. We do not question them because questioning them every single time would make society impossible. We have to trust. And predators know this. They study it. They exploit it. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Tobias Merrick was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. The Calloway family moved out of Evandale 6 months later. They do not attend church anymore. Ethan installed cameras around their new home. Meredith does not let the children out of her sight. Poppy has nightmares. Iris refuses to ride in any vehicle that is not her parents' car. Julian does not sing anymore. The footage still exists, archived in an FBI database. A perfect record of the moment a family made a decision that almost cost them everything. A decision that made sense. A decision that any of us might have made. Because the man looked helpful. Because the van said church. Because it was a Sunday morning in the suburbs and danger is not supposed to arrive in broad daylight with a smile and an offer to help. But it did. And it can, again. Because the real horror is not that monsters exist. It is that they look like everyone else. That they know what we trust. And they use it against us. See you in the next one.